Welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to dive right in, so make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and share this video with your friends. Thanks for watching, and let's get started. The Elizabeth II 5 new pence coin of 1980 is a fascinating artifact from Britain's decimal currency era, bridging the traditions of centuries-old coinage with the practical realities of modern monetary reform. To truly appreciate this coin, it is important to understand its place in the broader context of British numismatic history, the circumstances of decimalization, the portraiture of Queen Elizabeth II, the symbolism of its reverse design, its technical specifications, its circulation purpose, and its eventual withdrawal and legacy. Each of these aspects contributes to the depth and richness of this relatively small but historically significant coin. The 5 new pence coin was introduced as part of the United Kingdom's major shift to a decimal currency system, which officially began on the 15th of February 1971, known as Decimal Day. Before this reform, British currency followed the centuries-old system of pounds, shillings, and pence, where £1 equaled 20 shillings and 1 shilling equaled 12 pence, making 240 pence in a pound. Decimalization simplified the system to 100 new pence per pound, aligning it with international standards and easing trade, accounting, and education. The 5 new pence coin, which first appeared in 1968 prior to full decimalization, was designed as a direct replacement for the old 1 shilling coin, which held an equivalent value of 1/20th a pound. The old shillings, in fact, remained legal tender and interchangeable with the new 5p until they were eventually withdrawn, meaning the 5p carried forward not only the value but also the tradition of the shilling into the decimal age. On the obverse side of the 1985 new pence coin, we see the regal portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. This particular portrait was created by the artist Arnold Machen, whose effigy of the Queen was used on British coinage from 1968 until 1984. Machen's design is elegant and modern for its time, showing the Queen facing right, wearing the girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, one of her most recognizable royal jewels. The tiara was originally a wedding gift to Queen Mary in 1893 and later passed down to Elizabeth II, becoming iconic through numerous coin and stamp depictions. Machen's portrait was noted for being less formal than its predecessor by Mary Gillick, used on pre-decimal coins from 1953, yet more stately, giving Elizabeth II composed but approachable appearance suitable for modernized Britain. Around the portrait runs the Latin, Elizabeth II D times G times Reg times F times D times 1980. This inscription expands to Elizabeth II Dei Gratia Regina Fide Defensa, which translates to Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith. Each part of this inscription is steeped in history. Dei Gratia, DG, affirms the monarch's rules by the grace of God, a traditional claim of legitimacy. Regina, Reg, simply means queen. Fide Defensa, FD, or Defender of the Faith, is a title originally granted to Henry VIII by Pope Leo X in 1521, ironically before England's break from Rome, but retained thereafter as a Protestant claim of defending the faith of the Church of England. The date, 1980. Situates a coin within the final decades of the 20th century, a period in which Britain faced economic difficulties, political transformations under Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and social shifts, all while Queen Elizabeth II remained a figure of stability and continuity. Turning to the reverse of the coin, the design is emblematic of Britain's heraldic traditions. The 5 new pence coin bore the design of the badge of Scotland, a crowned Scottish thistle. The thistle has long been one of Scotland's national emblems, symbolizing both resilience and protection. According to legend, a barefoot Norse invader once stepped on a thistle during a night raid, crying out in pain and alerting the Scots to the attack. Thus, the plant became a symbol of defense. The badge shows a thistle with a crown above, signifying its official heraldic status and its union under the monarchy of the United Kingdom. This design was created by Christopher Ironside, a noted designer who was responsible for many of the decimal coin reverses. The thistle and crown motif links the coin not only to Scotland specifically, but also to the broader identity of the UK as a union of nations, with the 5p carrying a distinctly Scottish emblem, while other denominations carried English, Welsh, or British-wide symbols. The reverse is framed by the denomination, new pence above, and the number 5 below, making the value immediately clear. It is important to note that the wording new pence was retained until 1981, after which the inscription was changed to just 5 pence. Thus, the 1980 issue was among the last of the new pence coins before this change, making it particularly interesting for collectors as part of the transitional narrative. The 1985 new pence coin was part of the first generation of decimal coins, which were physically larger than their later counterparts. Its technical details are as follows. Metal composition: Cu/nickel, 75% copper, 25% nickel. Weight: 5.65 grams. Diameter: 23.59 millimeters. Edge: milled, reeded. This size and weight match the pre-decimal shilling, reinforcing continuity between the old and new systems. However, by the 1990s, the 5p was considered disproportionately large relative to its value, leading to the introduction of a smaller version in 1990, after which the larger coins like the 1980 issue were gradually withdrawn from circulation. In 1980, the 5 new pence was a commonly used coin, circulating alongside the larger denominations such as a 10p, 50p, and £1 note. The £1 coin would only appear in 1983. The 5p was often used for small purchases, bus fares, and as convenient change in shops. Its value in 1980 had more purchasing power than today, roughly equivalent to around 25p to 30p in modern terms when adjusted for inflation. For everyday people, the coin was unremarkable in daily transactions, yet as with many such pieces, time has transformed into a small capsule of history embodying the economic, cultural, and political circumstances of its era. The original large-size 5 new pence coins were eventually demonetized in 1990, replaced by the smaller version to save metal, reduce costs, and improve convenience. As such, the 1980 issue no longer circulates, but it retains interest among collectors, especially those building complete decimal sets or those drawn to coins featuring the new pence inscription. The 1980 coin is not especially rare, as it was minted in the tens of millions for circulation, but uncirculated or proof versions, especially in original packaging, carry collectible value. Its charm lies in its position near the end of the new pence era and its embodiment of the Machin portrait coupled with the Scottish thistle design. Though small, the 1985p represents much about Britain at the time, a monarchy depicted with dignity, a nod to Scotland's identity within the United Kingdom, the persistence of Latin inscriptions that tie modern rulers to medieval traditions, and the adaptation of a centuries-old currency system into one fit for the late 20th century. It is also a reminder how coins are not merely transactional tools but miniature works of art and pieces of national identity. By 1978, the decimal currency system in the United Kingdom had been in place for only 7 years, having been officially introduced on the 15th of February, 1971, commonly remembered as Decimal Day. The transition from the old pounds, shillings, and pence system to a simplified 100 pence to the pound system was one of the most significant monetary reforms in British history. The 5 new pence coin played a central role in this shift. It replaced the old 1 shilling, 1/0 coin, which had long been a fixture of British commerce. Importantly, the new 5p coin was given the same size, weight, and metal composition as a shilling, meaning that shillings and 5 pence pieces circulated side by side, both equal to 1/20th a pound. Many people continued to use old shillings well into the 1970s, and indeed they remained legal tender until 1990. This ensured continuity and minimized confusion, while also allowing the public to ease into the decimal system. In 1978, the British economy was struggling with inflation, unemployment, and the lingering aftereffects of the 1973 oil crisis. Yet despite economic hardship, the currency had to continue in smooth circulation, and the 5p coin became a practical, everyday piece of people's lives, used for bus fares, small shop purchases, and pocket change, a Queen's portrait. On the obverse of the 1978 5 new pence coin is a familiar effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by the sculptor Arnold Machin, I. This portrait, introduced in 1968 and used until 1984, was one of the most recognized images of Elizabeth II in her long reign. The Queen is shown facing right, wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. This jewel was originally a wedding gift to Queen Mary in 1893, later passed to Elizabeth II, and it became iconic because of its repeated appearance on coinage, postage stamps, and official photographs. Machin's design gave the Queen a refined but approachable dignity. His style was deliberately less austere than the gilt portrait used on earlier pre-decimal coins from 1953 to 1967, aiming for a more modern, yet still regal, impression suited for the new decimal era. Surrounding the portrait is a Latin legend, Elizabeth II D times G times Reg times F times D times 1978, which expand to Elizabeth II Dei Gratia Regina Fide Defensa, meaning Elizabeth II, the monarch's name and regnal number. Dei Gratia, D times G, by the grace of God, signifying divine right and legitimacy of rule. Fide Defensa, F times D, Defender of the Faith, a title granted to Henry VIII in 1521 and retained by successive monarchs, representing the sovereign's role as supreme governor of the Church of England. This inscription, while traditional, symbolized continuity in a time when the monetary system itself had undergone radical change. It tied the modern decimal coinage back to centuries of monarchical and religious tradition. The reverse design of the 1978 5 pence coin was created by Christopher Ironside, the artist responsible for most of the decimal series reverses. For the 5p coin, Ironside chose to feature the badge of Scotland, a crown thistle. The thistle has been a national symbol of Scotland since at least the 15th century. Its symbolism stems from both beauty and defense. Its purple flower is striking, but its spiny leaves are deterrent to aggressors. According to legend, during a night raid by Norse invaders, one stepped barefoot on a thistle and cried out, alerting the Scots and saving them from surprise defeat. The thistle therefore embodies resilience, vigilance, and the idea of defense through unity. The design shows a single upright thistle with a crown placed above it, representing Scotland's identity within the United Kingdom and its loyalty to the crown. Surrounding the design is a denomination, new pence at the top and the numeral 5 at the bottom. It is worth noting that coins of this period, 1971 to 1981, carried the words new pence rather than just 5 pence. This was to help the public distinguish between the new decimal coins and the old pre-decimal pence. By 1982, after more than a decade of familiarity, the word new was dropped and the coin simply bore the denomination. Thus, the 1978 issue is part of this important transitional phase in British coinage history. Specifications and physical characteristics. The 1978 5 pence coin belonged to the large-size 5p series, which was issued from 1968 until 1989. Its specifications are metal composition, cupronickel, 75% copper, 25% nickel. Weight, 5.65 grams. Diameter, 23.59 millimeters. Edge, milled, reeded. These specifications match the pre-decimal shilling, which is why the old shillings could still circulate interchangeably with the new 5p. The coin had a silvery appearance, durable surface, and a solid feel in the hand, traits that made it a familiar and dependable coin in people's pockets for 2 decades. By 1978, the 5p was firmly established as one of the most commonly used coins in everyday British life. It represented a modest but useful value. In terms of purchasing power, 5p in 1978 equates to roughly 30p or more in modern money. It could buy small grocery items, children's sweets, a bus fare, or go toward a newspaper. The coin was also important for cash handling systems. Vending machines, parking meters, and slot machines of the era were calibrated to recognize it. For many people, it was simply the shilling in new money, and old habits meant that some people continued to call it a bob, even though it was now decimalized. The year 1978 was politically and socially significant in Britain. The country was experiencing high inflation and industrial unrest, with what would soon be called a winter of discontent looming in 1978 to 79. Everyday prices were rising, and coins like the 5p saw frequent use as inflation eroded the real value of money. At the same time, Britain was preparing for changes in leadership. Margaret Thatcher would soon become Prime Minister in 1979. Against this backdrop, coins like the 1978 5p seem humble, but they were a constant, tangible link between the Crown, the government, and the people, passed from hand to hand in millions of daily transactions. The large-size 5p coins, including the 1978 issue, continued circulating until 1990, when they were officially withdrawn and replaced with a smaller version, 18 millimeters in diameter and 3.25 g in weight. This resizing was done to save metal, reduce bulk, and better align coin sizes with their values. As such, the 1978 coin is no longer legal tender today, but it survived in huge numbers in collections, drawers, and coin boxes. It is not particularly rare, as millions were minted for circulation. However, uncirculated examples, proof issues, struck for sets, or coins in original mint packaging carry collector interest. For decimal collectors, the 1978 piece is a desirable part of a complete set of new pence coins. What makes the 1978 5 new pence more than just a coin is its layered symbolism. The obverse ties it to Elizabeth II's reign and the traditions of monarchy. The Latin inscription anchors it in centuries of numismatic continuity. The reverse pays tribute to Scotland while affirming unity under the crown. Its size and composition link it to the shilling of old, easing the transition into a new system. And in everyday life, it was part of the financial fabric of Britain in the late 1970s, a time of great change. Though small in size, the coin represents both continuity and change. Continuity with centuries of British coinage and monarchy, and change in. The year 1975 fell within the first decade of Britain's decimal currency system. Decimalization officially arrived on the 15th of February, 1971, a monumental change that simplified the old, complex system of 240 pennies to the pound, 12 pennies to a shilling, and 20 shillings to a pound. In its place, the new system adopted 100 new pence to the pound, aligning Britain with international norms and easing calculations, accounting, and trade. The 5 new pence coin was one of the most important denominations of this reform. First issued in 1968, even before decimalization officially began, it was intended as a replacement for the 1 shilling coin, which had an equivalent value of 1/20th of a pound. Importantly, the 5 new pence was the same size, weight, and metal composition as the shilling, ensuring continuity and familiarity for the public. For nearly 20 years after decimalization, people continue to spend their old shillings interchangeably with the new 5p coins. By 1975, decimalization was no longer new. The British public had largely adapted, though many still clung to the habit of calling the 5p a bob, the colloquial term for a shilling. Old pre-decimal coins of equivalent size were still circulating alongside the new issues, making the connection between old and new currencies tangible. Economically, Britain in 1975 was facing turbulence. The country was reeling from the 1973 oil crisis, inflation was surging, and industrial unrest marked daily life. Against this background of difficulty and uncertainty, the coinage of the realm, though modest in value, provided a sense of continuity, connecting everyday transactions to long-standing traditions of monarchy and national identity. The obverse, Queen Elizabeth II. The obverse of the 1975 5 new pence features the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II designed by Arnold Machin, IA introduced in 1968. This portrait was used on British coins until 1984, making it one of the most widely recognized images of the Queen. In the portrait, Elizabeth II faces right and wears a Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, a wedding gift originally presented to Queen Mary in 1893 and later passed down. It became one of the Queen's most iconic jewels, chosen by Machin to symbolize grace, elegance, and continuity of tradition. Unlike the earlier Gillick portrait, 1953 to 1967, which showed the Queen uncrowned and youthful, Machin's effigy depicted her with a more mature and regal dignity, appropriate for a monarch whose reign was already well established by the late 1960s and 1970s. Surrounding the portrait runs the Latin legend, Elizabeth II D times G times Reg times F times D times 1975. Expanded, it reads, Elizabeth II Dei Gratia Regina Fide Defensa, meaning, Elizabeth II, her name and regnal number. Dei Gratia, D times G. By the grace of God, affirming divine sanction of monarchy. Regina, Reg, Queen. Fide Defensa, F times D. Defender of the Faith, a title first bestowed on Henry VIII in 1521 and retained by English and British monarchs ever since. linking the crown to its religious and historical role. The date 1975 completes the inscription, situating the coin within the social and economic context of the mid-1970s. For everyday users, this portrait and inscription gave the coin its sense of official authority, a daily reminder of the monarchy's presence in ordinary life. On the reverse of the 1975 5 new pence is a design by Christopher Ironside, OBE, who created the reverse artwork for most of the first decimal series. The design depicts a badge of Scotland, a crown thistle. The thistle has been associated with Scotland for centuries. According to legend, during a surprise raid by Norse invaders, one barefoot warrior stepped on a thistle and cried out in pain, alerting the Scots and allowing them to repel the attack. The thistle thus became a symbol of vigilance and defense. By placing a royal crown above the plant, the design connects Scotland's national identity to the monarchy and, by extension, the United Kingdom as a whole. Surrounding the design are the words New Pence at the top, with the denomination 5 at the bottom. This inscription is significant. From 1971 until 1981, decimal coins bore the term New Pence to distinguish them from pre-decimal pence. Only after a decade of circulation, once the system was firmly established, did the inscription change in 1982 to simply 5 pence. Thus, the 1975 issue is firmly part of this transitional, educational stage of British numismatic history. The thistle reverse is clean, bold, and symbolic. It emphasizes a unity of the 4 nations under one crown, while also celebrating Scotland specifically. The 5 new pence was the only decimal coin of the time to bear a purely Scottish emblem, balancing the use of English symbols on other denominations. The 1975 5 new pence belongs to the large-size 5p series, identical in size to the old shilling. Its specifications are cupro nickel, 75% copper, 25% nickel. Weight, 5.65 grams. Diameter, 23.59 millimeters. Thickness, 1.78 millimeters. Edge, milled, reeded. The coin had a silvery appearance, was durable in circulation, and felt substantial in the hand compared to today's smaller 5p. These dimensions would remain until 1990, when the coin was reduced in size to improve practicality. In daily life, the 5p coin was one of the most common and useful denominations. In 1975, 5p had the purchasing power of around 40-50p today, making it suitable for small but meaningful expenses. Children spent them on sweets, comics, and bus fares. Adults used them for newspapers, snacks, or as change for larger purchases. The coin also fits seamlessly into machines and public services. Vending machines, payphones, parking meters, and laundromat dryers were all designed to accept 5p coins, just as they had accepted shillings before. For this reason, the 5p became a practical bridge between old habits and new money. Even by 1975, many Britons still referred to it as a shilling or bob, particularly older generations who had lived with a pre-decimal system for decades. Decimal coins were modern, but the echoes of the past remained strong in popular speech. The mid-1970s were difficult years for Britain. Inflation reached double digits, unemployment was rising, and the government faced frequent strikes and industrial action. Prime Minister Harold Wilson was in office, and Britain had just joined the European Economic Community, EEC, in 1973, reshaping its global economic ties. In such uncertain times, the coinage of the realm served as a symbol of stability. The Queen's portrait represented continuity and unity, while a heraldic thistle on the reverse emphasized Britain's identity as a union of nations under one crown. Coins like the 5p thus carried meaning beyond their small face value. They represented the endurance of tradition in an age of rapid change. The large-size 5 new pence coins, including the 1975 issue, remained in circulation until 1990. That year, a smaller, lighter 5p coin, 18 millimeters, 3.25G, was introduced to improve convenience and reduce minting costs. The larger coins, though demonetized, remain common in collections and households. The 1,975 5p is not rare. Millions were minted for circulation, but it is still collected as part of the New Pence era set, 1968 to 1981. Collectors value examples in uncirculated condition, proof sets, or coins kept in mint packaging. Its interest lies not in rarity but in history. It is a piece of Britain's transitional decimal coinage with a design that no longer circulates.